You are watching programming from the East-West Center in Washington, D.C.
Thank you goes to the Office of Insular Affairs. And particularly, I want to thank Deputy Assistant Secretary Nakoa, who's here and will speak later on, but also his colleague Tanya Joshua for the support of the entire office there at OIA for their not only financial support of this project, but also their guidance and input throughout the project. All our speakers, we welcome them, and all of you both online and in person who've taken time to join us. I want to have a special mention to our board chair, who's here from Honolulu, Hawaii, Mr. Jim Scott. Jim, thank you so much for traveling this distance to be with us today. And our director of the Pacific Islands Development Program, Dr. Mary Hattori, is also here. I know that there are many things going on. There's lots of things on our minds, but it really is an opportunity to reflect and talk a little bit about the Pacific Islands and their crucial role, not only in international affairs, but certainly in the US relationship with them. And so this gives us an opportunity to do so. And we'll have a number of terrific speakers. The first introduction is a very important one, not only because she is my boss, but she is because just a month ago, she was appointed as the president of the East-West Center. And we're absolutely delighted to have today with us Major General Suzanne Vares-Lum, who's joined us all the way from Hawaii to come and make some opening remarks. Thank you, Susie. Thanks so much.
Aloha mai kako from beautiful Hawaii nei. I am so honored to be here. Thank you, Satu, and thank you, Representative Case and our Pacific Island Caucus, Department of Interior, Department of State, all of the amazing leaders from the Pacific and all of you who support Pacific Island nations. You know, it's so special to be here because the Pacific does matter to America, and America does matter to the Pacific. Being a daughter of this region, and the three of us with Dr. Jim Scott and Dr. Mary Hattori, all from the region, we can say that being Americans and being rooted with our ancestors from this region, so very critically important, connected to so many, all of you in this room. You are all here because it does matter to you. And it's a special time when you think of the Pacific and you think of all of the issues that we have worked together. It's meaningful. And that's why you spent the time this afternoon to come here today. And I'm so grateful to our East-West Center Washington, D.C. office and the staff who put this together to make this possible. The young fellows who are in the back, who have committed to the region and how very important it is. You know, America, the United States, we are a Pacific nation. And despite what others may say around the globe, I can attest to the fact that we are very proud of where we come from and who we are and the values that we represent. I'm so excited to hear the speakers today. I'm so excited to be able to meet each and every one of you. And what a special launch today. That's a beginning of a continued conversation, a beginning of an emphasis on a place so vitally important with unlocked things that we have yet to discover. So thank you so much for allowing me to participate today, and aloha.
Our co-sponsor, as well as our cooperative and collaborative partner on this, as I said at the outset, was the Office of Insular Affairs, and delighted, Deputy Assistant Secretary Nakoa, to have you here to maybe make a couple of opening remarks as well. As you're comfortable.
Thank you so much, Satu. I just wanted to first recognize everyone who helped to put together this amazing resource, this tool that we can use to better identify and represent the Pacific Islands in our country and the impact that the Pacific Island nations, countries, islands have on the fabric of America. So with that said, I want to first recognize East-West Center President Suzanne Puanani Vares-Lum. Mahalo nui loa for everything that you do for the communities in the Pacific. Of course, I could not skip recognition for the co-chairs of the Pacific Island Caucus, starting with my home state, Ed Case, Very great to see you, Congressman. Also Don Young, who's been an amazing supporter for the Pacific Islands and the Native Hawaiians for many, many years. Also, the other co-chairs, Congressman Amy Berra, Steve Shabbat, and Brad Sherman, mahalo for all of your work. I'd also like to just recognize quickly the other members from, the member from American Samoa, Amata Radawagan, who is, I believe, attending virtually. And then the ambassadors in the room and online, Ambassador Kyoto and Ambassador Zakios. And I believe Ambassador Susaya is also with us as well. Mahalo and great to see all of you. I was hoping that Erica Moritsugu, the Deputy Assistant to the President, was going to be in the room, but I believe she's online. So I'm eager to hear what she has to say in our panel. And then the last but not least, I want to recognize, acknowledge the other members of the executive branch, officials from state, DOD, and the veterans, Department of Veterans Affairs are also in the room. OIA, the Office of Insular Affairs, works on issues of importance to the 7 insular areas, 6 of which are in the Pacific, the U.S. territories of American Samoa, Guam, the Northern Mariana Islands, and then the 3 freely associated states, the Federated States of Micronesia, the Republic of Marshall Islands, and the Republic of Palau. The Interior has a long history of working with these insular areas, and OIA's sole mission is to care for the insular areas. In 2021, I'm glad to say that OIA managed more than $700 million in funding for Congress that Congress provided to support the insular areas through a combination of discretionary grants, technical assistance programs, maintenance assistance, core funds, energy, capital and infrastructure, the compacts of free association, and compact impact payments. I'm proud of the OIA team's work and efforts within the federal government to highlight the needs and the importance of the insular areas as part of the larger American family. Nevertheless, while I endeavor to continue that relationship that the OIA has, and while the United States territories and freely associated states harbor strategic locations with significant ocean and fishery resources in the national security interest of the United States, the people of these Pacific Islands are too often underserved by key federal programs and initiatives. The Biden-Harris administration is committed to advancing equity across the federal government for the U.S. territories, and we are also committed to strengthening our relationship with the freely associated states under the successful compacts of free association. So we are especially pleased to have the funding partner of the East-West Center today for the Pacific Islands Matter for America initiative. This new resource from the East-West Center is one important tool to address the historic underrepresentation that I spoke on earlier. And the East-West Center in Hawaii serves an important role as a national education institution to foster better relations and understanding among the people of the United States. So again, mahalo nui loa to the Congressional Pacific Islands Caucus for their support and their efforts to bring awareness of the Pacific to the members of Congress and recognition that the Pacific Islands truly do matter for America. Mahalo nui nui. Aloha.
Thank you, Deputy Assistant Secretary Nakoa. We now turn to, we're very fortunate to have 5 members of Congress with us today. One of them is going to be online, and we're expecting the arrival of one other shortly. But let us begin with welcoming Congressman Young. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll give you a chance to.
Oh boy. First, thank you, and thank you, Ed Case. He set up this caucus, and I'm very much interested in it. And, you know, the staff wrote me a speech. I'm not going to use it. You can clap if you want to. I just want to thank you and all the organizers, and again, Ed, because he set this program up and asked me if I'd be a caucus member, and I'm proud to say I am. I have a relationship with all the islands. Probably more so than many of you. I heard a lot of your names in 1941, 2, 3, 4, and 5. There's some of this young blood left in those islands. The importance of the islands has sort of been forgotten for a while. I'm glad to see this caucus. but it is so strategically important because you all are part of America. And what you were able to do in World War II and what you possibly could do, I hope not, in the future is very evident. The world has got, very frankly, smaller. We are more aware. Yet Congress is really not as aware as they should be, and what is a necessity and what you can contribute to the benefit of this great nation of ours. I just will say I usually make mistakes when I make a presentation without reading it. I was told that I should say that by a gentleman in the audience that Guam was the most important island. Mr. Underwood is here somewhere, right over there. And then I thought, oh boy, those Hawaiians will really get after me. But I've had the privilege, because I was chairman, I'd be to most of those islands all over. Palau and all down, American Samoa. I can't name them all. Kwajalein, a bunch, twice. It was very informative for me, and I took a lot of members with me. But we have a tendency in Congress not to follow up on what we learned. That's going to be your job, and your job, Ed. So that we understand that we can serve these islands as they serve us. You contribute. This caucus can play a very important role if you do that. If you don't do it, shame on you. But there's a lot of us, by the way, and welcome, my friend. I didn't see you there at first, so this is a great meeting. I can say that right now. But if we don't do this, we won't serve you well, and I believe we want to do so. I'm first place. You're great people. I know that. One of my islands I went to, they presented me with a full roasted pig. How was I going to get that home? I couldn't figure that out. They had a great potlatch after I left. I can tell you that right too. But we need more information, more presentation. The delegate does a great job, but it's one person. So you're all collected as the caucus, and you've got a big job. And make sure you're heard. If you got a problem, call me. Call Ed. Call the other members. We can get on that horn and talk to your boss real quick. So that's something you have to think about. That will make it work. And I'm confident this caucus will turn into something very positive. And I'll be happy. And I'm hoping, God willing, that I'll get to be out to the islands one more time and visit, have a good time, catch a big tuna. Boy, there's some big ones out there. I can tell you some stories about that fishing trip too. But I love the idea of what Ed's trying to do. And I'll help him out. I'll help you out. We'll be able to take him do the job for both parties. All Americans and all islanders, all together as one. Have a good day. I'm going to have to leave you. I have another event I have to go to. Do it right, do it often, and enjoy yourselves and be proud of what you're able to do for this great country of ours. Thank you and God bless. Did you get a lay for my wife?
Well, thank you, Congressman Young, very much indeed. I know we're waiting for a couple other folks to come, but let me turn to the founding co-chair and the representative of the 1st District of Hawaii, Mr. Ed Case, please.
Good afternoon, aloha. So great to have a little piece of the Pacific Islands right here in the room. And I really, really appreciate the opportunity to spend this time with you. First of all, I was not the founding co-chair. A number of us came together because we realized the importance of the Pacific Islands and started our caucus, which has really been a remarkable advancement, I think, in Congress towards the understanding of the Pacific Islands and towards actual initiatives to partner with everybody who shares our concerns for the Pacific Islands. I also think our East-West Center folks, Susie Vares-Lum, such a great addition as the head of the East-West Center. I first met her 20 years ago when she was on deployment to Iraq at Camp Anaconda, I think it was in Balad, where she was doing work in her military career before arriving at the East-West Center. I really appreciate my colleagues being here, Ami Berra, Don Young, Brad Sherman is up here. I see Brad up there, who has always been a champion of the Pacific Islands. And I just really am grateful for the Interior Department as well as the State Department for your great work and partnership. And I'm really gratified that we have our ambassadors here who have been such good partners in the advancement of the Pacific Islands. And all of you, thank you for your interest. Thank you for your partnership. I don't think we can start anything in these very difficult times for our country and for our world without remembering the people of Ukraine, without remembering what they're going through, and without committing ourselves to partnering with them, not only in what is going on with the Ukraine, not only with what is going on in Europe, but the realization that what happens there is going to impact the entire world. And yes, it's going to impact the Pacific Islands. We all know that. And so we know that the stakes are high there. And we know that what we can do while we are doing what we need to do there in partnership with our allies and partners there is to advance our common values, our common interests, our shared goals in the Pacific Islands, an incredible region of the world which has taken on heightened importance in recent years. It rated a whole bunch of mention in the most recent Indo-Pacific strategy. You will find it talked commonly and in the halls of Congress in both classified and unclassified settings in terms of all of our testimony, all of our engagement in all committees. And so it really is a very, very good time for that. 3 years since we started this caucus and really light years of advancement in terms of our engagement, in terms of our thinking, in terms of our desire. Now, that's the good news. The bad news is we had a lot of catching up to do. Because for many decades, we had not kept up, I don't believe, at least with our Pacific Island partners and allies, sufficiently at least. And so as the great geopolitical challenges of our time and era, which will continue for a generation or more, came upon us, we really were not sufficiently engaged. And so our effort is to engage on all fronts. Our effort is to assist on all fronts. Our effort is to partner on all fronts with whoever shares our goals in the Pacific Islands. And we have found ready and willing and able partners throughout the world. But as Don said, that's all based on a common understanding, a common set of commitments, of goals, of knowledge that will fuel our re-engagement in the Pacific Islands and will advance our collective interests there. And so the East-West Center's partnership with the Department of the Interior on why the Pacific Islands matters answers a question that I still get asked on occasion. Why does the Pacific Islands matter? 25 or so jurisdictions with a pretty small population, and why does that matter? Well, there's the answer. It does matter, and this is why. It's a very comprehensive look at it, but obviously this initiative goes well beyond just kind of pulling into one place and under one umbrella the answers to that basic question. It also has to do with active engagement, active education. And so the areas that this partnership is producing, not only outside of Congress, but inside of Congress, are really incredible things such as a congressional staff program on the Pacific, which the East-West Center is going to make available to anybody that wants to join up and learn about the Pacific Islands. I mean, we need to know this. We need to know this for this generation and the next. And so this is an invaluable area that we can really provide a lot of base knowledge that we're going to need to make the difficult decisions going forward. We need to step up and say when we care and when we recognize them. Later this week, I'll introduce a resolution with colleagues that basically reaffirms our relationship with the Pacific Islands and acknowledges the relationship and commits to strengthening that relationship. Now that's a resolution. We're following it with action on a number of the bills that are in Congress right now that will significantly advance that re-engagement. But a resolution also has meaning, and it also has symbolism, and it also sends a message to the Pacific Islands. And so for my fellow members and for the staff in here, please look for my dear colleague, which is out there right now. We'll drop it probably in another couple of days. So I'm going to stop there. I've talked long enough, but I'm just really happy at the overall momentum that we have been able to develop in the last few years to re-engage with the Pacific Islands, to look into the future, at what kind of future we want the Pacific Island wants and what we both want together, and to mold that future as opposed to letting it be dictated to us by other forces in the world. So anyway, thank you so much again to both of you collectively, East West Center and our Department of the Interior for this effort that we look forward to partnering with you. And I look forward to staying in touch with each and all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Case. We now turn to Congressman Steve Chabot from Ohio. Thank you, sir, for joining us today.
Thank you very much. And great job, Ed. And Ed, of course, represents the beautiful islands of Hawaii, and I represent the beautiful islands of Cincinnati, Ohio. So it's great to be one of the co-chairs, and I'm also the ranking member of the Asia Pacific Subcommittee of the Foreign Affairs Committee. And the foundation of our relationship, the United States and the islands, goes back, as we all know, to World War II, when tens of thousands of Americans gave their lives to free this region from an aggressive empire. With territory spanning the Pacific, the United States is itself a bona fide Pacific nation with an exclusive economic zone that borders Japan's. Thanks to these ties, we're not divided from Asia by the Pacific Ocean. We're in fact connected by it, and US policy must reflect that fact. Now, more than 75 years after the end of the Second World War, the Pacific Islands once again face a hostile power that would treat them as subjects rather than equals. We must acknowledge that the primary threat to our shared interests and values comes from the Chinese Communist Party and its ambitions in the Pacific, whether that's in the form of infrastructure-related corruption, massive illegal, unregulated, and unreported fishing, or unsustainable extractive industries. Of course, nations justifiably resist being treated as pawns in a competition between great powers. That's why going forward, our relationship with the Pacific Islands must not focus exclusively on security, but also on our shared interests and values, our mutually beneficial trade relationships, our religious ties, and our people-to-people ties. And by the way, it's essential that we complete negotiations for renewed compacts of free association with the freely associated states. Diplomatically, the United States needs to be present in the Pacific Islands, and the State Department should continue its efforts to establish a permanent presence in countries like the Solomon Islands, for example. And on the economic front, the United States must ensure that we respond to the needs that the Pacific Islands have identified for themselves, especially with respect, for example, to infrastructure. Our relationship with the Pacific Islands is in many ways a gateway for the US to the broader Indo-Pacific. Thanks to the Pacific Islands, that region isn't really on the other side of the world, it's right next door. That's why, as the initiative name says, the Pacific Islands matter for America. Thank you very much.
We're going to make one small change. We have Representative Brad Sherman from California online, and we'd request that, please, Congressman Sherman, there you are, sir, please.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm Brad Sherman from California's best named city, Sherman Oaks. I've served for 26 years on the House Foreign Affairs Committee and chaired the Asia Subcommittee, and I'm very pleased to be co-chair of the Pacific Islands Caucus. It is good to see Ami Bera, who's now the chair of the Asia Subcommittee, Steve Chabot, who's the ranking member. It was good to hear Don Young. I'm sure Kai Kahele is going to be involved with us. And of course, Ed Case, who you just couldn't have a stronger advocate for the Pacific Islands. I'm also pleased that we're joined by Keone Nakoa of the Department of Interior and Erica Moritsugu from the White House. We join today in affirming our strong commitment to the countries and territories of the Pacific region We can't forget about the Pacific territories in Congress. We have an obligation to make sure their voices are heard. It's why the Pacific Islands Caucus has supported the East-West Center's initiative to fund the Pacific Islands Matter for America booklet and the Congressional Education Series. And I'm pleased to be here today to celebrate those efforts. The United States has long recognized the Indo-Pacific as very important to our security and our prosperity. Our ties are forged through more than 2 centuries. Our ties to the Pacific Islands have grown with the arrival of Pacific Islander communities to the continental United States, and so many have made a home in the Los Angeles area. The Second World War reminded the United States that our country can be secure only if Asia is secure, and together the Pacific Island peoples and American servicemen and women fought to keep those islands, to make those islands free. We have historical, economic, and moral obligations to the region. Today, the Indo-Pacific region remains vitally important to our own national security interests. That's why I've joined with Congress members Case and Berry to help introduce the Blue Pacific Act this Congress, which grows our engagement with Pacific Islands by increasing development aid related to maritime enforcement and security and other development initiatives. This is why it is vitally important that we ensure that the compacts of free association of states are expeditiously renewed. All too often, we in Washington wait to the last minute or even past the last minute to get something done. That means substantial harm is done while people wonder whether we're going to get it done and get it done right and get it done on time. The compact is set to expire next year for the Republic of the Marshall Islands and the Federated States of Micronesia, and the following year for Palau. The compacts not only help us encourage development, but also serve as our core national security interests. I previously fought, along with Representative Case and others, for full funding for these agreements, which we must consistently and fully fund. To that end, we took a significant step in the final fiscal year 2021 omnibus funding bill to include $5 million of the $20 million debt the U.S. owes to the Marshall Islands in response to unilateral changes made to the investment tax and trade incentives in the initial version of the Compact of Free Association. We cannot take our Pacific partnerships for granted, and we need to get these compacts done on time. Obviously, China is looking at the Pacific. The Chinese government has stated that the Pacific Islands are a core component of their One Belt, One Road initiative. We have seen in other places them trying to install small nations into debt traps. We know that China is stepping up its military involvement in the region, and why it's important that the United States renew these compacts and be involved consistently in the Pacific. Many of these territories face the effects of global warming and rising seas. We need to fight global warming, but we also need to recognize that if there is going to be global warming, we have to help the Pacific Islands adjust to these climate changes. The United States must continue to set an example by working closely with the Pacific Island nations and territories to combat climate change, promote sustainable development, counteract the influence of the Chinese government. The freely associated states have long supported U.S. diplomatic and security interests globally and in the Southwest Pacific. I'm proud to be a member of the Pacific Islands Caucus and will continue to work toward a renewal of the compacts and expanding our relationship with the U.S. Pacific Islands, to expand the U.S. - Pacific Islands relationship. Thank you very much. I'm Brad Sherman.
Thank you, Mr. Sherman. And finally, our co-chair from California, also Mr. Ami Bera, Representative Ami Bera. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you. It's being the last speaker, I just want to associate myself with all the comments that everyone prior to me made without stating them all over again. That said, I really do. You've heard an amount of praise for Congressman Ed Case, and he really has turbocharged the caucus. He's been a leader on introducing legislation, the Blue Pacific Act, and had it not been for the pandemic, I know we would have traveled at least once, maybe twice to the islands, and hopefully soon. Incredibly important. Also, having the privilege to chair the subcommittee on Asia and the Pacific on the Foreign Affairs Committee, we can only choose a limited number of topics to have hearings on. And you've seen in the past year, we chose one of those topics to focus in on the Pacific Islands. And in fact, you saw that same focus under Congressman Sherman when he was also chair. So that does demonstrate the importance that we place on our relationship, the United States relationship with the Pacific Islands. I also want to thank the East-West Center for their leadership in elevating this relationship and educating other members of Congress on the importance of the relationship. I was just looking through the publication a little bit and constantly learning a little bit more. But again, the importance, the Pacific Islands span 15% of the world's surface area. That's remarkable. So that is a huge, exclusive economic zone. I didn't realize the combined Pacific Islands GDP is $139 billion. Again, a huge economic powerhouse here, super important. And then of the Pacific Islanders that live in the United States, over 50% live in Hawaii and California. Now, Ed State has about a little over 390,000. We've got my home state, 330,000, but we're going to catch up, Ed. So Hawaii's nice, but come out to California. No, it is an incredibly important relationship, and I want to thank all of you. I see some of the ambassadors here virtually, as well as in the room, that are real champions of the importance of the Pacific Island nations. So again, thank you for your leadership. It's an honor to be one of the co-chairs of the Pacific Islands Caucus, and let's make sure that as we work together, we have a safe, prosperous, and peaceful 21st century in relationship with the islands. Be well.
Well, that brings to a close our congressional speakers. And before you give you time to get your virtual headsets on to imagine the virtual fireside chats that will happen soon, just want to make one other announcement related to Congress, and that is the launch today and the opening of applications for the Congressional Staff Program on the Pacific. This joins a series of congressional staff programs that the East-West Center does here in Washington to engage young staff on personal staffs, committee staffs, commissions, other advisory bodies to be more knowledgeable about, informed about the key issues so that they can support the work of the Congress, the work of the caucus. So please do circulate that link and that open application to all who would be eligible to take part in that. We now turn to the first discussion on the U.S. role in the Pacific. And let me just, you have it on your program, but let me invite again, Deputy Assistant Secretary Nakoa to make any brief additional remarks you want to make.
I'll just pass to the other members of my panel, and I'll flip aside. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We have Erica Tugu online. Are you able to hear me, Erica? Thank you. Thanks for joining us from the White House. And may I turn to you then for the first remarks for this session, please.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Doctor. We owe a debt of gratitude to you all for your leadership on behalf of the East-West Center, but also noting the leadership and the inspiration that General Vares-Lum plays, and Deputy Assistant Secretary Nakoa, the members of the Congressional Pacific Islands Caucus and its co-chairs, the honorable ambassadors joining us this evening, and our esteemed colleagues that I'm honored to join for this panel. Aloha, y'all. As the Deputy Assistant to the President, I'm a member of President Biden's senior staff, acting as the voice in the West Wing to lift up the hopes and needs of Asian Americans and Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islander communities communities in all of our administration's policies, politics, and community engagement. It's a new role. It was created 1 year ago, and I was honored to be selected and appointed last April. And I'm charged with making sure that the richness and the diversity of our communities are not made invisible, and that the impacts of the administration's policies are inclusive of and communicated to our communities. So I appreciate the opportunity to join you for the launch of this outstanding project. Growing up in the Pacific Island region myself, I know just how important the contributions that Pacific Islanders have made to the success of this country. The Pacific Islands matter for America, and America matters for the Pacific Islands. I agree. I come to this work with lessons learned from the example that our beloved Senator Nakoa set, to truly see ourselves in each other and to hear and value each other. The collaborative partnerships that made this project possible are the reasons why the U.S. role in the Pacific has chronicled a storied past with tools in hand to rise together. Even before the East-West Center was established, the United States was deeply invested with our friends in the Pacific. During World War II, the people of the Pacific Islands fought together with the United States and were critical to the defeat of tyranny and preservation of a safe and secure Pacific Islands region. From Guadalcanal and the Solomons to Papua New Guinea, the Gilberts, the Marshall Islands, Mariana Islands, Palau, and many, many others, our long-standing familial and cultural relationships and mutual pursuit for peace and freedom have remained vitally important, even for those of us here in Washington, over 8,000 miles and 8 time zones away. One of the treasures of the U.S. relationship to the Pacific region is the robust people-to-people ties through the diaspora community here in the United States. This report does an outstanding job highlighting these relationships. Members of Congress have just mentioned showing off for their own constituencies, but they should be proud. California and Hawaii host nearly 50% of the Pacific Islander population in the United States, and the second fastest growing ethnic population. Almost 1.5 million people in the United States call the Pacific Islands their native home. Another area where our people-to-people ties can feel weighty and significant is in disaster relief, as we recently saw following the January volcanic eruption and tsunami in Tonga. The United States government provided $2.6 million for emergency needs so far. But we also saw how the Tongan American community quickly mobilized to provide support. For example, a group of Methodist churches in Hawaii joined together to stand up a Tonga Relief Task Force. And Tongan American leaders on the West Coast established the Tongan Relief Support of America, fueled by a coalition that includes MALO, Pacific Islander Initiative at UC Berkeley, MANA, Vakatasi Foundation, Mordi, EPIC, and Kappa. All of these efforts underscore the resilience of the Pacific Islander peoples and the resilience of the region. And though the numbers of Pacific Islander Americans across the nation are not large by comparison to other populations, we do recognize that they are integral. You are integral to our American family. Pacific Islander Americans work across many sectors in the country to provide for their families and serve their communities. For example, Pacific Islanders are known to serve across all branches of the U.S. Armed Forces in numbers that are wildly disproportionate to the sizes of their populations. We acknowledge these contributions and honor those sacrifices. From our historic relations and our ongoing shared commitment to regional peace and security, it's clear that our nations are deeply linked. The East-West Center has been a champion in raising the profile of the relationship between the United States and our friends in the Pacific. I applaud the new Pacific Islands Matter for America publication and website that's going to help to highlight the various connections that we share within the Pacific Islands region. I'm personally and professionally excited for this renewed energy for collaboration into the future. Mahalo for the opportunity to share this space with you today.
Thank you very much, Ms. Martsugu. And we'll now turn to, from the Department of State, Deputy Assistant Secretary Mark Lambert.
Good afternoon. Thanks to my executive branch brothers and sisters over at the White House and the Department of Interior for helping to raise the profile of Pacific Islands. Thank you to East-West Center for your partnership, longstanding partnership on trying to do the same. But also a special thanks to our colleagues in the legislative branch. Never before has the leadership, the bipartisan leadership that we've seen today been more important. The Pacific Islands have never loomed larger in what our country is trying to do in its Asia-Pacific policy. Ours is a Pacific nation. Many of you are from Guam or Hawaii or California. I'm a proud Oregonian. Our country is intertwined with the interests of the countries in the Pacific, across the Pacific. And the Pacific Island countries are a top priority for the Biden administration. Last month, I think we put our money where our mouth is. On the eve of the war between Russia and Ukraine, Secretary of State Tony Blinken went to Melbourne, Fiji, and Honolulu. In Melbourne, he met with Indian, Japanese, and Australian friends. And yes, the Pacific Islands came up. In Fiji, he was the first sitting Secretary of State to go to Fiji since 1985. And while there, he had a virtual and in-person meeting with representatives of all the countries who are members of the Pacific Island Forum. And it's not coincidental that our colleagues over the White House synchronized the long-anticipated release of the United States Indo-Pacific strategy with Tony Blinken's trip to Fiji. That's to send a message of how important we view the Pacific Islands. They are on the front line of our competition for influence. And it's been heartening to me and the State Department to hear leaders from the Republican and Democratic parties acknowledge the challenge that we face, the peer challenger we face in the shape of the People's Republic of China. The Pacific Islands are geographically significant. They're vitally important. They were in 1941 and they remain so today. But as was said before by Congressperson Shabbat, we have to meet them halfway. We have to listen to the Pacific Islanders in a way that maybe we always haven't done. I think it's important that we thank the countries in the Pacific for their strong support for Ukraine, calling out Russia, unanimously supporting the historic resolution condemning Russia's aggression at March 2nd's UN General Assembly special session. A special shout out to the Federated States of Micronesia, who severed diplomatic relations with Russia. That's leadership. While he was in Fiji, Secretary Blinken also underscored our commitment to reopen our embassy in the Solomon Islands. Now, you all know Solomon Islands, the most populous island is Guadalcanal. And I think it's also symbolic that the president has put forward as our next ambassador to Australia, Caroline Kennedy, whose father, when he was a PT boat captain, was rescued by brave Solomon Islanders. We have a tie to the people of the Pacific Islands that our younger people need to remember. In his roundtable on Fiji, Secretary Blinken also listened and learned. The myriad concerns of the countries in the Pacific Islands, they include climate, sustainable development. They want to educate their young people. They are really desperately concerned about illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing. We need to partner. This is something that we need to do with our best partners. And we are in conversations. I will be going to Tokyo and Seoul next month. We're talking to the Japanese. We're talking to the Koreans. We're talking to the Australians. We're talking to the Kiwis. We're talking to the Brits. We're talking to the French. This is the type of thing that we all need to do in partnership with the leaders of these important countries. So finally, in short, we are upping our game. We intend to partner with the leaders here on Capitol Hill. This is a challenge for our country. It's a challenge for all of us. We need to listen to the countries in the Pacific Islands. We need to partner with our allies and key partners in Asia and elsewhere. And we need to do this all together. So all of us have a stake in this, and thank you all for your time.
Thank you very much, Deputy Assistant Secretary. One of the unique features, or I think important features of this report and the website, is that it covers not only the territories, but also the freely associated states and the other sovereign countries in the region. So really tries to be very holistic in its approach. And we're delighted to have online with us from American Samoa, Representative Amua Raduagan. So please, Representative. Yeah, it's actually a recorded video. So. Great.
Talofa lava. Thank you for the opportunity to send greetings from beautiful American Samoa. My apologies for not being there for your panel, but as you can see, I'm delighted to be at my home at Coconut Point for the first time in a long year of COVID precautions. I'm here for a very short time with the federal team, combating a recent COVID outbreak and was unable to arrange my schedule to be with you live, so I apologize for these recorded remarks. Your focus today on the Pacific Islands and Oceania is so important. Since World War II, all U.S. policy in the Pacific has flowed from two national defense imperatives: keep the sea lanes to Asia open and keep bad actors out of the region. We did that successfully, and things were quiet in the Pacific for a long time after the war. The U.S. dominated north of the equator. Australia, New Zealand, and France were the main protectors in the south as the Pacific Islands began an evolution into self-government and independence. American Samoa had the first non-hereditary head of government in 1956, when President Eisenhower appointed my father as the first native governor, and nearby Western Samoa had its first head of government with the appointment of the current Prime Minister's father in 1959. In the mid-1980s, three events woke up the region. New Zealand elected a government pledged to be nuclear-free. A Vladivostok speech, Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev declared the Soviet Union a Pacific power, and Kiribati signed a fishing treaty with the Soviets. That was enough for all the warning bells to go off in Foggy Bottom. All of a sudden, what had been an office of Australia, New Zealand, Pacific Affairs was now divided into three, with Pacific Islands getting their own and another of the freely associated states. Long-stalled political status negotiations with the Trust Territory were concluded. Washington opened up USIA and USAID offices in the region and upgraded our embassies. And for the first time ever, in a State of the Union speech, President Reagan warned of the Soviet presence in the region. But then, within a few years, the Soviet Union collapsed. Funds budgeted to support the U.S. presence in the Pacific were diverted to Central Asia to support U.S. relations with the newly independent Soviet republics. The extra offices disappeared at State Department as the ANP office was recreated. Fast forward to today, the Soviet Union is gone, the Russians are preoccupied elsewhere, and there's a growing presence of China in the region, with the Chinese Communist Party eager to fund projects in a number of countries in the region, including our neighbors in independent Samoa and the Kingdom of Tonga. We in American Samoa welcome talk in Washington of home porting a squadron of U.S. Coast Guard cutters in Pago Pago Harbor. Against this backdrop, you'll never be short of material for your publication and website. The Pacific Islands matters for America, America matters for the Pacific Islands, and the U.S. role must be thorough engagement. On that note, I'd encourage you to watch the Georgetown University's Center for Australia, New Zealand, and Pacific Studies website for the announcement of the lecture to be given virtually by my friend Prime Minister Limaye, the historic first female Prime Minister of Samoa. She will be delivering the Peter Talley Coleman Lecture in Pacific Public Policy late this month. As she also is Foreign Minister, I expect she'll have a lot to say that this audience will want to hear. Have a great event today. Make a positive difference for the Pacific Islands. And finally, I wish all the women on the program and in the audience a happy International Women's Day. Pa'aftai, soifua, maia manuia.
Well, that was terrific to have a pre-recorded message, and very grateful. Our final speaker for this session of sort of U.S. policy in the region is from the Office of the Secretary of Defense, Indo-Pacific Security Affairs. We are grateful to have Ms. Kara Allison Marshall. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to join you all today. In keeping with the theme of this conference, the Pacific Islands matter for U.S. national security. In the Defense Department, we will work to bolster the region's security and help build the island's capacity and resilience as secure, independent actors who can manage the adverse effects of climate change and the activities of nations seeking to exploit the region and undermine the established international order that underpins regional peace, stability, and prosperity. As laid out in the Indo-Pacific strategy, we will focus on every corner of the Pacific Islands region, and we'll tailor our approach to the needs of our partners in the islands, taking a collaborative approach to security cooperation. DoD proudly partners with Pacific Island nations to support capacity building initiatives to enhance maritime domain awareness. We already have robust programs in Palau, the Federated States of Micronesia, and the Republic of the Marshall Islands. DoD will explore new and unique approaches to enhancing maritime domain awareness to detect, deter, and respond to challenges posed from illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, as well as malign actors. We're expanding our official representation and security cooperation offices in the region and are looking to augment the state partnership program to enhance people-to-people ties. The Defense Department also recognizes the increasing importance of humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. We were proud to contribute to and are thankful for the assistance provided following the volcanic eruption and subsequent tsunami that affected Tonga by Australia, New Zealand, Fiji, Japan, France, and many others. DoD continues to welcome opportunities to empower the government of Tonga to lead its own recovery. As we look toward the future, DoD supports our diplomatic engagement to successfully renegotiate the economic assistance provisions of the Compacts of Free Association. Successful conclusion of these negotiations will further enhance our strategic partnerships with Palau, the Federated States of Micronesia, and the Republic of the Marshall Islands. DoD is resolutely committed to the defense and security provisions of the COFA. We recognize the strategic advantage that the agreements afford to the United States. As we recognize that no region will be of more consequence to our future, Defense Department will continue to work towards a secure Pacific. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Marshall. With that, this concludes this session, but please join me in thanking all the speakers, both online and here present. And let me invite the next panel to please come up. We're delighted to have, as I said, we wanted a holistic approach to the Pacific Islands, and we're delighted in the next session to have not only a representative of Fiji, but also of Republic of Palau, as well as our relationships with Australia, New Zealand, and the Republic of the Marshall Islands. So may I invite you please to come up, and thank you all for joining us today. Thanks. And change these over. Oh, great. Well, let me start by inviting Ambassador Dr. Satyendra Prasad, who's Ambassador of Fiji to the United Nations. And he's joining us virtually from New York. And please, Ambassador.
Thank you, Vice President, and good afternoon to everybody, to congressmen and members of the caucus. And congratulations, fellow ambassadors. Congratulations on the launch of this fantastic report, which I find very comprehensive and exciting. And thank you for framing, Vice President, the discussions this afternoon in this way. Pacific Island matters for America, and America matters for the Pacific Island. And let me pose that title back to you. If you just look at the ocean side of America, and the Pacific Islands is a large ocean state, so America's EEZ add up to something like 11 million square kilometers, of which 5 million square kilometers, just less than half of it comes from the Blue Pacific, comes from the Pacific. So half of America, the oceanic part of America, is Pacific. And if you add that to the rest of the Pacific that you are talking about, that gives a total stock of ocean space of something like 50 million square miles of the surface of the planet, close to 30% of the surface of the planet. And so over this 30% of the planet, we have some shared responsibilities and some joint responsibilities. The one that many Pacific leaders spoke to in cohesion when they met Secretary Blinken not a few weeks back in Fiji was on climate change. And one way of our shared looking at our shared responsibility is that the Earth today has two lungs, in simplifying it. One is the Amazon, which is probably getting close to carbon positive, and the other is the Pacific, which will remain even at 1.5 as carbon negative. So we are sharing something together on which the stability and health of the whole of the planet rest. And that's a very important shared responsibility. And I'd like to frame my discussions from that perspective. In Secretary Blinken's meeting with Pacific Island leaders, Pacific Island leaders spoke about then what are the type of issues that keep them awake. And primarily, and I was in that room, primarily leader after leader spoke that the thing that keeps them awake is the security elements that come out of climate change, whether it's sea level rise, global warming, and its impact on ocean health and fisheries migration, displaced communities, and the cost of displaced communities, and the instability that arises out of it. So, in many ways, many small island states think about and look at stability and security in the Pacific from the lens of it's a climate informed lens, it's a climate determined lens, and that too again speaks a lot about the way in which US and Pacific Island states can be and are, and I hope growingly will be looking at how they work together. The second element of this is that many of these small island states, including my own Fiji, are small island states which are already disadvantaged in the global system. And any big shocks in the global system, the impacts are felt immediately. War in Ukraine is probably going to add something like 2% of equivalent of 2% of GDP cost to the recovery of Fiji immediately in 7-8 days since the war started, and that's multiplied manyfold. Food insecurity, cost of imported food, etc. And the argument I'm making is that this shared space, it needs to also be a shared space of economic stability. And it is not only climate catastrophe that threatens economic stability, but so many things happening in the global environment that put small states inherently at a disadvantage, and this disadvantage is multiplied many fold, many times over. And there's an excellent partnership between US and Pacific, therefore, to be spoken about. And my final point will be where I think there's fantastic opportunities and space for US and Pacific to be working together. Whether you use a geopolitical lens, whether you use a security lens or economic lens, is working together to help small states of the Pacific adapt to changing realities, to changing climate realities, to changing economic realities that is arising out of climate insecurity, and to changing geopolitical considerations and how they play out on small states in terms of enhancing their vulnerability, enhancing their insecurity. And Fiji looks forward with great excitement, with the absolute excitement in working with the US in taking forward this shared vision and this shared perspective to their great heights. And I thank you very much for inviting me to offer these comments.
Thank you, Ambassador Prasad. We now turn to the ambassador from the Republic of Palau, and I just must flag that he is the Dean of the Diplomatic Corps here, the longest serving ambassador here in Washington. We welcome you and thank you.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everybody. It's good to see some familiar faces. If I'm not going to take too much time, I just want to recognize Congresswoman Madeline Bordallo, who's a great friend of Palau. In the back, Congressman Underwood, good to see you. And of course, Congressman Case. Also, Tony Babauta, who's a great friend of Palau and Micronesia and in the Pacific. I like to thank the panel or the group, that the organizer, for thinking about Palau and inviting me to say a few remarks this evening. I didn't have time really to prepare to do a prepared statement. I was really busy last night sending invitations from our president to members of Congress, inviting them to participate in the Our Ocean Conference, which will be held next month, April 13 and 14. I know I sent one to Congressman Case and a lot of people, Dan Young and some other who spoke before. I'm still waiting for response, and hopefully you can come to visit our small island where we will showcase the importance of ocean and as it relates to our daily lives and the need to preserve and protect the world's ocean for generations to come. So the president didn't authorize me to extend an invitation, but over here in the States, I'm the president of Palau, his eyes and his mouth and his ears. So you are all invited to come to Palau for our Ocean Conference. It was very encouraging to hear the members of the Pacific Caucus to speak so strongly in support of renewing our compact, the economic and financial provisions of the compacts which will expire for Palau in 2024 and for FSM and Marshall 2013. So we have at least 1 year. But my friends from FSM and Marshall, we need to, as we say in Palau, tighten our belts and get to the discussion table so that we can do something before it's too late, 2013. The theme, which I really, it's a music to my ears when I hear Pacific Islands matter for America and America matters to Pacific. You know, I recall in 2007, a member, a high official from the Department of State was called to a hearing on the Hill. I was at that hearing, and he declared 2007 as the year of the Pacific. There will, you know, for the entire year and the year after, there were really nothing that really took place that signified that the year was really indeed the year of the Pacific. So I hope, I don't want to be negative, but I hope this theme will really takes off and represent what it says. When you look at Palau, FSM, and the Marshalls, those are really associated states. Since the compact took effect for Palau in 1994, we haven't seen any real economic development or real US investment in the islands. And if we want to really make this real, we have to have those. We have to have, it shouldn't be just words, it should be deal, and a very strong deal indeed to really get together and see what we need. And what we need is economic development. It's, I don't want to come here every 15 years or 20 years and negotiate for the compact to get the money, because we want to spend the money in 15 years and there's nothing. But real investment, economic investment are the keys for our success. So I just want to put that on the table for discussion, and hopefully we can really attract some development to Palau, FSM, the Marshalls, and the rest of the Pacific. While the compact negotiation may be stalling right now, I'm confident that two friends, or in this case, four friends, can come on the table and really speak truthfully and honestly for the benefits of both FAS and United States. You know, our president once said that it's not a matter of who wins. It's not a matter of US wins and Palau loses. It's a matter of both countries to win. And I think we're here for one reason and one reason only, to be prosperous and to share the values of both countries. And I cannot see anything better than coming to the table as gentlemen and as equal partner to discuss the economic provisions in the compact that will benefit both Palau and the US. And while we're maybe stalling, China is watching. China is watching. And not only watching the Pacific, they're also watching what's going on in Ukraine. And if the allies do not do something, I think and it's no secret that China wants to gain control of Taiwan. So I just really hope that nothing like that will happen in the near future. So I mean, many issues have been raised, and I don't want to repeat, but those issues are the same in Palau, FSM, and the Marshall, and also many islands in the Pacific. So I wish success for this, the launching of this website, and I'm looking forward to more collaboration and work together to make Pacific to make this year and next year really the year of the Pacific. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ambassador Keone. We really appreciate your clear remarks, and I can certainly say as a testament to our president being here, our chair of our board, and our director of the Pacific Islands Program, I can certainly speak for the East West Center in saying we're committed to working on the Pacific and working with various bodies, both in government and outside of government, to continue our engagement. So thank you for your remarks. We now turn to two ambassadors, one who happens to be at our headquarters of the East West Center in Honolulu, Hawaii, Ambassador Sinodinos of Australia. And we also have Ambassador Rosemary Banks here, two great leaders on Pacific Islands issues in Washington, working closely with the Pacific Caucus, but also with the island countries and the region as a whole. So we thank you both for your presence. May I first invite Ambassador Sinodinos from Honolulu East West Center to please make some remarks.
Thanks very much, Satu. And thank you to the East West Center for bringing us all together and for the publication Pacific Matters. I got here and you'd all gone to Washington, but I'm being looked after here by Jake and others. And can I say, my reason for making this official visit to Hawaii is precisely because Australia continues to increase what we're doing in the Pacific, how we're working with the Pacific. The watchwords for us are listen and learn. One of the other speakers spoke about this. This is not about doing things to the countries in the Pacific, but doing things together with the countries in the Pacific and listening to countries and taking their lead on priorities for the region. We welcome Secretary Blinken's visit to Fiji. Very important, the first by a Secretary of State in 40 years. We've been working here in Washington with the US administration and with partners like my very good partners, New Zealand, others like France who have important stakes in the Pacific, Japan, the UK, others taking an interest in what's happening in the Pacific, working together to meet the priorities identified by the region. We're very keen to see the US do more in the region, to build on what's already been done. Australia's been an important development partner and presence in the region for a long time, but there's more we can all do together. We have the Pacific Step Up initiative a few years ago to increase our presence and our contribution to the Pacific, but we now see the challenges which lie ahead, the challenges around climate change, the recovery from the impact of COVID-19, the infrastructure requirements of the region. The Asian Development Bank have told us that the Pacific Island countries require investment in infrastructure of $3.1 billion annually to 2030. Now that's a real challenge. So there are big issues that we have to tackle together. The Pacific Matters publication is a great way to show the way in which the US and the Pacific matter to each other. And so we, as members of the region, countries like Australia, we're very keen to work with all of our partners in the region on what needs to be done. But as I said at the beginning, this is about listening and learning and not lecturing the region, but working with the region on its priorities. So thank you for the opportunity to be with you today. I wish you the very best of success with this publication. Congratulations to your new president. And I'm being very well looked after here at the East-West Center. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Ambassador. And we're envious that you're in Hawaii, but we welcome your return here and look forward to working with you further. And with that, let me turn to another important leader on Pacific issues in town, Ambassador Rosemary Banks, please.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Greetings, everybody, and thank you to the East-West Center and to the Congressional Pacific Islands Caucus for bringing together this wonderful group, both in person and virtually. Congratulations too from us on the publication, which certainly is an excellent quick guide to why the US and the Pacific matter to each other and why you need to understand each other better. And this kind of gathering is doing exactly that. For New Zealand, Pacific is in our DNA, it's our identity. We're linked to the region by people, by history, by culture, politics, by sport. And so as one Pacific nation to another, we're delighted to see the US indicating a willingness and an enthusiasm to engage more deeply and systematically and in a sustained way in our region. For New Zealand, we're very keen to do what we can to encourage and support that. And of course, for all of us, a stable, secure, and resilient region is exactly what we all want. But I think everybody in this room is well aware of the interacting and mutually reinforcing challenges that confront our Pacific neighbors, whether from climate change or through to transnational crime. And much mention has been made today of illegal, unregulated fishing. We in New Zealand have been trying to do our best bilaterally to respond to these challenges. 60% of our development budget goes to the Pacific, but we are increasingly aware that to respond at scale to the nature of problems that we're now seeing, we need to be working more closely and more cleverly than ever with our partners, with Australia, with the US, with Japan, and others in the region. So we do recognize that we have to, of course, we always have to respond to the priorities that Pacific nations put for themselves. And we do have to keep proving our credentials to be a preferred partner of choice in the region. Just on another dimension of the Pacific, one of the strong foundations in the region has always been its regional architecture, principally the Pacific Islands Forum, but also the Pacific Community, Foreign Fisheries Agency, and others. These are the shared places where our Pacific neighbors come together to decide what's in their best interests, what are their priorities, what direction they want to choose. And so this is an important piece of architecture. It's also a source of influence for the Pacific region on the global stage, as has been demonstrated this past week in New York on the vote on the Ukraine. However, unfortunately, we've seen in recent times that some fractures in the Pacific Islands Forum have shown that we can't take that unity for granted. So under Fiji's leadership, we're hopeful in New Zealand that we can find a resolution that will be acceptable to all parties. Since it's International Women's Day, I want to close by acknowledging the women of the Pacific, who are so often the catalysts for creative and good change and progress. So for New Zealand, we've always been supporters of initiatives to bring women into full inclusive positions in their own societies. We've long since been funding governance education, education for public life, empowerment of women in the economy. So I just close with a tribute to all those wonderful women of the Pacific and the paths that they can lay to the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Banks. I really appreciate that, and especially the tribute. We began this session on Allies and Partners with an ambassador representing Fiji, and we'll close this session and indeed just basically close the formal part of this program with the ambassador of the Republic of Marshall Islands, His Excellency, Ambassador Zakios, please.
Thank you very much, Satu. Can you all hear me? Good afternoon, Yapai, or good evening to everyone this evening. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. I will begin by restating comments that were echoed earlier and re-echoing them as one U.S. president said to us in the freely associated states, "You will always be family to us," President Ronald Reagan. Thank you to the East-West Center, Vice President Satu and President Vares-Lum, Mr. Chair, Director Atori, for the invitation to participate in this important launch event. But congratulations. I'd like to also begin by wishing all you beautiful women out there in this audience and those watching, and all women, a happy International Women's Day as we celebrate and honor your contributions in all aspects of our lives. Thank you very much. I also join in prayers for our good friends in Ukraine for lasting peace in that part of the world. As it is in the island, it'd be remiss of me if I don't begin by respect and recognition. So I would like to offer special recognition to all our distinguished Pacific Islands Caucus co-chairs, Representative Don Young, Ed Case, Amy Barra, Steve Shabbat, Brad Sherman, Amanda Radwagon, and all members of the Pacific Island Caucus. Thank you all so very much for your support and advocacy for the Pacific Islands. I wish to also acknowledge distinguished colleagues and friends, Deputy Assistant Secretary Keone Nakoa of the Department of Interior, Ms. Erica L. Murtsugu, Deputy Assistant to the President and Asian American and Pacific Islander Senior Liaison Office of the Chief of Staff, White House, Deputy Assistant Secretary Mark Lambert of the Department of State, our colleague from the Department of Defense, Alston Marshall, Mr. Edgar D. Gagan, Special Assistant to the President and Senior Director of the National Security Council, and all of those that are joining us virtually. Last but not least, I wish to acknowledge my esteemed colleagues who have spoken before me on this panel, the Dean Ambassador Kyoto from the Republic of Palau, Ambassador Banks, Prasad, and Sinodinos. We thank the Department of Interior and the East-West Center for the Pacific Islands Matter for America America Matters for the Pacific Islands publication. It is an informative snapshot of our relations and where we are in terms of trade, investment, employment, business, diplomacy, security, education, tourism, and people-to-people connections. And I will reiterate, people-to-people connections. The work of the East-West Center, in collaboration with partners such as NOAA and other sectors, continues to be important in informing our collaborative and respective areas of focus in research and policy responses to address key issues that we continue to face. Very briefly, I would like to touch on 3 issues for the Marshall Islands and US relations, recognizing that these issues are cross-cutting and also intersect with our overall security. First, compact. A successful and meaningful outcome of our compact talks with the United States is our foremost priority. And I was glad and very happy to hear that being echoed by members of Congress and the administration. We are at a defining point in our unique and special bilateral relationship. The fundamental aspects of the RMI's national sovereignty are no small feature of this free association. Powers that only the 3 freely associated states among all nations of the world let the United States exercise. President Kabua recently highlighted issues of priority in his statement at the Pacific Islands meeting co-hosted by the Honorable Secretary Blinken and Acting Prime Minister of Fiji held last month. It is critical for our relationship to have open dialogue to address all our issues, no matter how difficult they may be. Nuclear and climate change. As a low-lying atoll nation, climate change is an existential threat to our country and community livelihoods. We are not only extremely vulnerable to frequent severe weather events, such as high tides and coastal storm surges and droughts, but also slow onset events such as sea level rise, ocean warming, and acidification. We thank the East-West Center for the important work on climate change impacts in the health sector and migration in the Marshall Islands. And we welcome future work on long-term implications to our limited natural resources, livelihoods, and security. We look forward to participation in research and stakeholder consultations in collaboration with the Pacific Regional Integrated Science and Assessment Program to better understand and better respond to disasters and extreme events specific to our region. The adverse impacts of climate change to an already fragile atoll ecosystem, compounded by nuclear weapons testing contamination and associated toxic and hazardous waste dumping, are challenges unique to the development aspiration of the Marshall Islands. Both issues are complex for any country to address alone. There are no easy answers or quick fixes, but rather a deeper understanding of the specific needs on the ground and targeted solution based on credible scientific research and policy tools. Deeper understanding, awareness, and education is equally important. Our youth and future Pacific leaders, who are Pacific leaders. Building resilience within our communities is also about ensuring our people are provided with the best quality of education and healthcare. A just and equitable resolution of the unfulfilled obligations in education and unresolved health and environmental issues remains a key concern for the RMI government. Last week on March 1st, the RMI commemorated Nuclear Victims Remembrance Day. President Kabua and other RMI leaders once again highlighted the ongoing challenges of addressing our shared nuclear legacy. I want to extend on behalf of the government and the people of the Marshall Islands our sincere appreciation and thanks to Senator Hirono, Markey, and Representative Porter, Chu, Titus, and Radwagon for their very important joint resolution introduced to Congress on the anniversary of our nuclear testing on March 1st, 2022, to formally apologize to the Republic of the Marshall Islands and affirming the importance of our special and unique relationship under the compact. We look forward to having our nuclear legacy and other important issues assessed once our negotiations commence. I heard other speakers talking on the issues of oceans and fisheries. This is a very important issue for us small low-lying atolls. As large ocean states, the Pacific Ocean and maritime resources have sustained our people for generations. For many of us in the region, our marine resources are one of very few, if not the only, viable economic opportunity. It is therefore no surprise that we continue to raise issues of IUU fisheries, ocean dumping, marine pollution, climate change in the context of our sustainable development and security of our maritime boundaries. We welcome the Indo-Pacific Strategy and the Action Plan, including targeted support to the Pacific Islands and refocusing efforts on strengthening maritime security to safeguard fisheries. In addition to maritime security, greater cooperation on trade and direct U.S. investment, in particular, fisheries sector would help put many of our fragile economies on a more resilient development pathway. Perhaps an important arrangement that we should continue to look at is the U.S. Tuna Multilateral Treaty between our countries, the U.S. and the Pacific Island countries. I thank you for the time and the opportunity to be here today with you. Komoldada, have a great evening.
Thank you, Ambassador Zakios, for those remarks. Now it remains for me, I've already thanked the Pacific Caucus and Representative Case and all his co-chairs. Thank you again. Thank you to OIA, Das Nakoa, Tanya Joshua, and others at OIA. But let me also thank the terrific East-West Center team. We have a number of young professionals here, as well as our full-time staff, coordinated by Sarah Wong, who's I think behind the podium here, kind of the magician behind running a hybrid program, as well as our colleagues at the East-West Center in Honolulu, who have beamed in Ambassador Sinodinos as well as others. So you can see a very effective hybrid cooperation to bring this program. And then finally, let me just enjoin you to join us for the people-to-people relations in U.S. Pacific relations by having something refreshing in the back, maybe something more than refreshing in the back. I'm not sure what's there, but it is past 5 o'clock. So welcome to all of you. Thank you for taking the time to attend, and look forward to continued engagement for the East-West Center's work with others on the Pacific Islands. Good day.